Ladies and gentlemen, I am informed by the town clerk that we have the requisite 50 people here, so we have a quorum, and with the establishment of a quorum, I hereby declare that the special town meeting for the town of Long Meadow is in session. It's come to my attention, ladies and gentlemen, that the warrants, copies of the warrants that you picked up outside is missing a page. For those of you that don't know this, there's a missing page that contains a number of the articles. That missing page can be found outside where you checked in. You can get that second page. So just so that you know that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing, ladies and gentlemen. This town meeting, we have Veterans Day coming up here on November 11th. It would be proper, I think, that the town meeting have a moment of silence for all of the veterans that have died in the wars that this country has faced, as well as the continuing problems that we have that our nation's servicemen and women are protecting us. So I would ask for a moment of silence. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, our veterans. Now, I would ask town meeting to take a look at the back of your warrant. There are the housekeeping rules that I have used in doing the town meetings. There's a couple of those housekeeping rules that I want to make mention to you, and that is that over here on this section is the place where visitors to the town meeting and the press, this entire section right here, is reserved for visitors. So if you are a visitor to our town meeting, welcome. But the visitors must be in this section. Only town meeting members, voting town meeting members, are allowed on the floor. So I wanted to bring those two rules to your attention. If there is anybody that you recognize that doesn't have a yellow card, that person does not belong on the floor. They belong in the visitor section. Of course, that, if there's children involved, that's another issue. You can still be in the bleachers. You can any place where you have a seat, I guess. The fire exits. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that we have the fire exits in the rear of the gymnasium. We have fire exits here, over here, and over there. They're green exit signs, and in the event of an emergency, fire personnel have told me to just follow those green signs, and all of these exits are open and available in the event of an emergency. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll open up debate to Article 1. Mrs. Angelides.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $119,424 from the FY 214 Community Preservation Fund revenues for CPA Fund Balance Reserve for Open Space, $39,808, CPA
Okay.
Okay. CPA Fund Balance Reserve for Community Housing, $39,808, and CPA Fund Balance Reserve for Historic Preservation, $39,808.
Is this as printed in the warrant? Ms. Angelides, is that?
Yes.
Okay, in case you didn't hear it, it's as printed in your warrant. Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and second. Further discussion on Article 1. Ms. Angelides.
The Community Preservation Act, CPA, requires town meeting to appropriate or reserve for future appropriation at least 10% of the estimated annual CPA revenue for acquisition and initiatives for each of the following three categories: open space, community housing, and historic preservation. Approval of this article will satisfy the requirement for FY 2014. Currently, the FY 2014 state matching share is at 26% of our prior year surcharge of $80,579.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 1. Seeing none, move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 1, would you please raise your yellow cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 2, Ms. Angelides.
I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $385,000 for the purposes of funding the FY 2014 budget as adopted at the May 2013 annual town meeting.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 2.
The FY 2014 financial estimates have been updated. A transfer of $385,000 in available funds in the Treasury, free cash, is needed to balance the FY 2014 budget and allow the town to set its tax rate in a timely manner. The $385,000 is a result of changes made to the school operating and capital budgets, net $300,000, at the May 2013 annual town meeting, an evaluation settlement with Twin Hills Country Club of $85,000.
All right. Further discussion on the motion under Article 2. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this Article 2, motion under Article 2 requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? Motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 3, Mrs. Angelides.
I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $90,000 for the fiscal year 2015 Department of Revenue mandated triennial update of all properties in town.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 3.
Every
Ms.
3
Angelides.
years, the Department of Revenue requires Massachusetts municipalities to do a complete analysis of our property data in order to certify that our property assessments are at full and fair cash value. Such analysis includes sales data to ensure the valuations are within the parameters set by the Bureau of Local Assessments within the Department of Revenue. This appropriation will allow the town ample time to complete the mandated update in order to set the FY 2015 tax rate in the fall of 2014.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 3. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 3, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? Okay, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 4, Mr. Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $42,070 from the FY 2014 sewer receipts to fund the first year's debt service on the debt authorization for the Emerson Road Sewer Pumping Station as approved in Article 12 of the May 7, 2013 annual town meeting.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 4, Mr. Gold.
Work on the Emerson Road Sewer Pump Station has begun. This FY 2014 appropriation will allow the first principal reductions of the $276,000 debt authorization that was approved in May of 2013.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Further discussion on the motion under Article 4? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 5, Mr. Gold.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $57,548 from fiscal year 2014 water receipts to fund the first year's debt service on the debt authorization for the Forest Glen Water Pump Station as approved in Article 13 of the May 7, 2013 annual town meeting.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 5, Mr. Gold.
Yes, work on the Forest Glen Water Pump Station will begin soon. This fiscal year 2014 appropriation will allow for the first principal reduction of the $277,070 debt authorization that was approved in May 2013.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Further discussion on the motion under Article 5? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 6, Mr. Grant.
I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $19,274.98 for the purposes of paying bills of prior year.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 6, Mr. Grant.
Costs associated with the removal and disposal of solid waste and recyclables exceeded the fiscal year 2013 budget and are currently being withheld from payment until a proper authorization for such costs is made. This appropriation will allow for the payments of those prior year's bills. In other words, we're just trying to pay bills that we've already incurred.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 6. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a 9/10 vote since it's a bill from a prior year. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? Motion passes, unanimous affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 7, Mr. Grant.
I move that the town vote to authorize a special account to be established for the collection of donation proceeds from the sale of leaves on the Ian Wax Memorial Tree of Courage by the principal of Longmeadow High School or his or her designee. Said funds to be deposited in the special account with the town treasurer, with interest on the funds to remain as part of the special account and expended by and in accordance with policies established by the Longmeadow School Committee to support student activities at Longmeadow High School.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 7, Mr. Grant.
In 2012, the Wax family donated the Ian Wax Tree of Courage, which is displayed in the front hallway of Longmeadow High School. The leaves on the Tree of Courage will be sold to members of the community and other interested parties at the discretion of the high school principal and school committee. The school committee is requesting that the proceeds from this tree be collected and deposited into an interest-bearing account, which will support public service and volunteer projects designed and created by students at Longmeadow High School. Per Massachusetts general law, all monies collected by the town are to be deposited in the town's general fund unless otherwise provided. The proposed article will create a school department account where interest can accrue on the balance of the funds received from the sale of the leaves.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 7? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? The motion passes unanimous affirmative vote. Mr. Santinello.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $100,000 to cover the cost of consultants, including a traffic consultant, special legal counsel, and similar experts to address the impact of a destination resort casino in Springfield, including the impact on the town's public safety, health, infrastructure, educational, financial, and related concerns.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 8. Mr. Santinello.
In order to protect the town's interest regarding the possible granting of a casino license within the city of Springfield, the Select Board will be hiring a number of consultants, including but not limited to special legal counsel and traffic consultants, to assist the town in addressing its public safety, health, infrastructure, educational, financial, and other related concerns. The town will seek reimbursement from MGM for these and all costs incurred protecting its interest under the gaming statutes.
Thank you, Mr. Santinello. Further discussion on the motion under Article 8. Mr. Randall.
Bruce Randall, 107 Colton Place. Mr. Moderator,
Yeah.
looking ahead, I noticed there's an Article 13. I won't read it, but it's brought by a citizen petition, and I'm wondering if we could have one or more representatives of that Article 13 to answer my question, and hopefully others, what their recommendation is on the current article, which we're looking at, which is number, sorry, I forgot, what the recommendation is about how we should vote on this article we're talking about relevant to its impact on Article 13. Does that make sense, Mr. Moderator? Enough that, or does it make sense to representatives that might want to talk to that?
Well, if I could ask Mr. Randall, our town manager is going to make a presentation about Article 8, so maybe you want to hold off your question until he makes his presentation, and maybe that will answer some of your questions. Can
Thank
we
you,
do
Mr.
that?
Moderator. Sorry.
Mr. Crane?
That works for me, thanks.
Okay. I'll recognize you as soon as you have the floor. Right now, Mr. Crane has the floor. Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Stephen Crane. I'm town manager, and I'm here just to present some brief information about this article. The Massachusetts Gaming Commission will consider awarding a resort casino gaming license for a Springfield casino. That is a matter of fact. A surrounding community agreement is required as a part of that process, and that agreement can either be negotiated or forced through binding arbitration under the regulations. The law also requires that the agreement be fair and reasonable. If a community refuses to participate in the process, it may waive its right to mitigation. To be a surrounding community, it must demonstrate significant and adverse impacts. And those words, significant and adverse, are especially spelled out in both the law and the regulations. And the regulations governing the issuance of a gaming license and really the whole process talk about specific factors that would need to be significantly impacted, significantly and adversely impacted, to be considered a surrounding community. I have a few listed here. We talked about them in the warrant description. Transportation, infrastructure, public safety, public health, education, property values. I think the things that we all are concerned about and have questions about. The funds that we're seeking under Article 8 are needed to help the town measure the possible impacts of a casino in Springfield. Under the laws of the Commonwealth, you cannot spend money without an appropriation. And that is why this article is really needed. The funds that we're seeking under this article will be used on an as-needed basis for retaining professional assistance, as spelled out in the description. For one, we have retained attorneys to help us negotiate and draft a surrounding community agreement, and also prepare for a possible arbitration hearing. We also have identified a traffic expert that we would work with to analyze the traffic studies that are being done right now by both the developer as well as the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and see what those studies say about Long Meadow, about traffic impacts on our town, and really review their conclusions to make sure they fit with what we believe will happen. And finally, we also will be working with a municipal services consultant that has expertise in analyzing the other impacts, like impacts on public safety and housing values and things like that. The important thing is this: that the town must do this. We must prepare for the negotiation of a surrounding community agreement, because that process is beyond the town's control. It is in the sole discretion of the Mass Gaming Commission. And right now, our departments have worked very hard and spent a lot of time researching the questions about the impacts of a casino in Springfield, but we're not statisticians or researchers or analysts. And we really have been limited in what we've been able to find out. And so we really need additional help to assess the impacts and really protect the interests of town residents. And I think another important factor is that some or all of the funds will be reimbursed by either the developer or the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. It is set in statute that the costs that surrounding communities incur in assessing their impacts in preparation for a mitigation agreement are reimbursable. So that is all I have on this article.
All right.
We'll go back.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 8. Yes, sir.
Stephen Metz, 171 Coventry Lane. I'm not against planning, obviously, but this seems to be very general and very vague. Who determines what specialists are going to be hired, what the time frames are going to be, what they're going to be studying? Who sets the parameters? How does this all work?
Mr. Crane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The select board, as well as me, have been spending many hours discussing this and identifying questions that we want to know and have asked. The select board did go through a procurement process of sorts to retain counsel. We have retained a firm out of Quincy. And with the assistance of our attorneys, we've identified both a traffic consultant and, like I said, the municipal services consultant. So those decisions are made jointly by town manager and the select board with the guidance of our council.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 8. Mr. Grant, please.
Prior speaker asked the position of those who are in favor of Article 13. I'm one of those people. I'm one of the people that helped bring that question to this town meeting. And I can tell you that the $100,000 here is really analytically distinct from the question of whether we oppose the casino in Springfield. This is so that we can negotiate a surrounding community agreement with MGM, assuming that MGM passes the suitability test and goes through this process, which we expect to do. The Gaming Commission is going to make a decision in April. So between now and April, we're not going to know what they're going to do. We need to prepare for this surrounding community negotiation or arbitration if it comes to that. So we have a lawyer, we need a lawyer, we need experts on traffic, and I can tell you that those of us on the select board have looked at this, and I'll speak for myself if anybody wants it, but we have discussed it, and these experts are necessary. We might have disagreed about the timing of these experts or how quickly we needed to do it, but there's no doubt that it needs to be done.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 8? Yes, ma'am.
Barbara Passo, 119 Field Road. I have two questions. Question number one states that the town will seek reimbursement from MGM, and yet on the items that I'm reading there, it said that the funds will be reimbursed by the developer and or the Mass Gaming Commission. I'm a little confused. I certainly wouldn't want to be getting money from MGM who has a vested interest elsewhere. And my second question is, are we joining with the other surrounding towns, or are we working independently?
All right. Can we address the first question, please? Mr. Crane.
Hi, thank you for your questions. To answer the first question, the law sets two processes out to help communities who incur these costs. One is called a voluntary disbursement program, and that is we seek funds directly from the developer MGM to see if they will voluntarily give us the funds to help us. We have initiated that process. If the developer decides that they don't want to provide those funds, the Gaming Commission has set forth an involuntary disbursement plan by which the town can then go directly to the Mass Gaming Commission for reimbursement, and then Mass Gaming Commission will eventually take it from the casinos, in this case MGM. So it's really a time, and there are certain timelines set forth that dictate when you can do one versus the other. So we're prepared for both. And the timing is, I think in the next few weeks is going to be a timeline that'll trigger being able to go from voluntary to involuntary. So that's why I can't tell you where the money will be coming from specifically today. And
Your next question?
oh, I'm sorry, about the working with other communities. Yes, on the issue of traffic, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission has been coordinating a larger scale effort to review traffic analyses regionally, and they are going to be really representing the region to what peer review, MGM study, and peer review is they've retained their own independent expert to take what the traffic engineers that are working for MGM produce that for their traffic study that they are required to do under the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act, MEPA, and Pioneer Valley Planning Commission's expert will take that apart. And so there's been a lot of regional meetings associated with the traffic study part. Certainly Springfield, West Springfield had a joint mitigation committee that predated the referendum that ultimately failed about the Hard Rock development in West Springfield. The groups that were going to those meetings continue to meet. So there's been tremendous amounts of dialogue between Long Meadow, both the select board and the town manager and other communities. In terms of formalized agreements or something like that, the law really requires that each community negotiate its own separate agreement with the developer. So in the case of MGM, they have to have their own agreement with Springfield, which is a host agreement. And then each surrounding community, and we believe there are 8, there'll be 8 separate surrounding community agreements, each with distinct provisions governing the unique mitigation needs of each community. Does that help?
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Further discussion on the motion on Article 8? Yes, ma'am.
Jessica Reyes, 42 Hazelwood Avenue. I have 2 questions. One is $100,000 does not seem like enough for this threat to our community. I'd like to ask, it says greater or lesser, and I would like to ask why it's not greater, because that seems like it will go very fast when spent on lawyers and consultants. Number 2 is, with the traffic report, it sounds like we're piggybacking on the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, who is looking at whatever MGM produces. So whatever ridiculous assumptions and, lies and misestimations that MGM puts in there will need to be caught third hand by our traffic consultants. I would like to ask why we don't make an appropriation for a direct assessment, or at least some more direct assessment, rather than just taking MGM's word and trying to question it, which isn't the way to get at the truth of the traffic impacts for our town.
All right, can
Thank
we
you.
address the first question, please? Mr. Crane.
Excellent questions. The first answer is we have a contract, essentially an agreement with our attorneys with a not-to-exceed fee, so that number is set. And we have had in-depth discussions with the other consultants and gotten a sense of what their costs are, and we feel like we can get the work we need to get done with the $100,000. I pray that we don't spend it all, and I hope that we are able to get what we need to get within that amount. If we need to certainly go for additional funds or seek a transfer within our budget, we will do that. But the priority is protecting the interests of the residents. We feel, based on our research, that this is sufficient to do what we need to do. But if it's not, we will find a way to do more. In terms of your second question, that actually is a subject that we have debated at the select board level extensively, and the answer really is the traffic engineers for MGM do traffic counts. They also take traffic counts that are existing, that the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission has, that were done before casino things even became a reality. There are also traffic studies that were done for West Springfield, for Hard Rock. Our town engineer has done traffic counts for various reasons. There's a lot of raw data out there. And every single traffic consultant we have spoken with, which are many, have all said the same thing, and that is to really effectively challenge MGM's engineers and their assumptions, you need to work from their report and take apart their assumptions and their data. Having one competing traffic study and another and trying to ram them together to see which one wins out is not really an effective way to truly assess the veracity of the developer's report. And I think it's something that if you're involved in development or in engineering, it's something that is pretty common. And we've asked the question, like I said many times, why don't we do our own? And they said, you're not going to get what you need out of doing your own because you're attacking their conclusions and not trying to. It's better for us, based on our experts we've spoken with, to disprove theirs than try and prove our own. And so that it is an excellent question. It is a somewhat convoluted answer, but just in the traffic engineering trade, it's just what they do. But I have every confidence, I think the board does, that it's the right approach to make sure that our traffic impacts are properly assessed.
We have to make a change to the audio microphone here for just a second. I should tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that they have given us a brand-new podium here. It's got a built-in microphone. It's got a clock in here. I'm going to see if we can get a TV in there next time. Further discussion on the motion under Article 8. Yes, sir.
James Turtelot, 64 Prinwood Road. I'm a little confused about the timing. I assume we're not going to spend any money until we know whether MGM has been selected. Is that correct?
Mr. Crane, please.
That is actually not correct, because by virtue of the approval of the referendum, which was essentially approval of the host community agreement in Springfield, that moment really made Long Meadow a surrounding community. There's an official designation under the law where the Gaming Commission either the applicant, MGM, can submit their applications that are due on December 31st, called Phase 2, and say in their application, here are the communities that are surrounding communities, we're working with them on agreements, or they can submit an application that says, we don't have any surrounding communities, and then each community has to go to the Mass Gaming Commission and fight for the designation. The process, as the process has unfolded so far, MGM has treated us like a surrounding community, and we've been working together collaboratively, and I think everyone in those 8 communities understands that we will be acknowledged as such in their application. Because that is the case, there are timelines after December 31st that are pretty narrow to really get these surrounding community agreements done, and to really negotiate, we have to know in quantifiable ways what we think the impacts are going to be, what we believe based on our expertise that we will get, the proper solutions are to those impacts, and then what those solutions cost. And that is essentially what the negotiation of an agreement will entail, is debating those solutions and costs. And then if we are unable to reach an agreement, a binding arbitration hearing will occur that will essentially look at that information, what MGM feels is its best offer, to what the costs are, what the solutions are and what they cost, and our best offer. And so we need to be doing the homework now. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question, but it doesn't answer the final question, which is, assuming we spend all this money in anticipation that MGM is indeed approved, which, by the way, is not at all necessarily likely. If one reads the Boston Globe regularly, you'll note that MGM has great problems in addition to whatever the towns are going to cause them by rejecting the idea of a casino at all. So it's as likely as not that MGM is not approved. How likely is it then that we get our money back?
I think it's likely. I mean, these costs are incurred as a matter of course in following the process set forth in the regulations. So I think it's highly likely we get the funds back. And as I pointed out, the funds are going to be spent on an as-needed basis. If MGM has a suitability hearing, for example, which is one of the precursor steps to license being issued, sometime in the coming weeks or months, and say in the next 8 weeks, and I don't know, it hasn't been scheduled, but say it happens in the next 8 weeks, and we haven't spent any or all of our money, then and they're found not suitable, then the money goes back to the Treasury. It goes back to the general fund. I mean, I think that's the important part. We're not signing $100,000 worth of contracts tomorrow and then the money's out the door. It is going to be, at least as needed. And the reason why it's as needed is this has never been done before. The surrounding community agreement process, just so everyone's aware, spelled out under the Expanded Gaming Act, is the first time anywhere in the country this has been done. There are no precedents for this. We can't go to another town and say, how did you handle your surrounding community mitigation agreement process? So because we're kind of writing these things we're kind of inventing the process on the fly, it's been a little bit unpredictable and a little bit spontaneous, if you will. And so that's why I can't tell you, here's what we're going to spend in this month, here's what we're going to spend, because we're all kind of reacting to certain things that are happening above our control at the Gaming Commission level.
If these funds are likely to be returned to us, is there a vehicle? Is there an escrow account? Is there money being retained by somebody?
Mr.
To
Turlock,
reimburse us?
please.
Mr. Turlock, if you recall that MGM, Penn National, Hard Rock Cafe in our area all put $460,000 into the Mass Gaming Commission pool.
Right.
That and all the companies in the eastern part of the state that did, that's the pool we're drawing from. So that's why the slide said primarily from the Mass Gaming Commission, but also potentially from the developers. So there is, if you think of it as an escrow account, it's the Mass Gaming Commission who's got that money in pool.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 8. Yes, ma'am.
Sarah Maggi-Moran, 113 Farmington Avenue. Just as a point of clarification, these funds, in addition for legal counsel, are also to be used to hire Long Meadow-specific consultants for traffic consultants, public safety, health infrastructure, educational, financial-related concerns specific to Long Meadow. So we do not have formal information on these yet tonight. We do not have that.
Mr.
Is that
Crane?
correct?
We have knowledge of some, but not all, and we've been talking to consultants and kind of getting an idea of what we want to look at, but we haven't been able to engage them and do the work without the appropriation. And I'll be honest, it is possible we'll look at some areas and they just won't be impacted. I go back to those two words, significantly and adversely impacted, and it's possible that being fair and reasonable in their analysis, they'll say this area isn't going to be significantly and adversely impacted, but this area is. And we've been looking at it with our department heads and our team to see what we think, but some expertise of people who do this for a living is really what is called for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 8? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? The motion passes majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 9, Mr. Santinello.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $10,000 in the FY 2014 Department of Public Works account grounds maintenance budget for the annual maintenance of the clay courts at Bliss Park.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 9, Mr. Santinello.
Additional funds are needed for the maintenance of the Bliss courts. The original FY 2014 budget was originally set at $4,000. The additional funds will allow for proper preseason reconditioning of the courts and for the reconditioning of the courts in the early spring. Previous maintenance costs were covered by a gift from a town resident.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 9, Mr. Steiger.
Ned Steiger, Finance Committee Chair, 72 Twin Hills. The Finance Committee voted not to support this particular article because we didn't have any particular detail about how much does it cost to maintain a clay court. And we thought that there should be ample room in the Public Works budget that already currently exists.
Thank you, Mr. Steiger. Mr. Crane?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just wanted to go over this article briefly, and to some extent it was a later addition to the warrant, and I apologize to the Finance Committee for that. The courts at Bliss are clay, and clay courts really involve a really significant maintenance responsibilities. When they get wet, they have to dry out, they have to be rolled. I have 3 pages of things you have to do to clay courts. They're labor intensive, but worth it for the playing experience for those who really enjoy tennis. My understanding, I think as you know, I'm relatively new, but my understanding was the courts were closed for several years, and there was a strong support for reopening them. And part of the reopening process was offset by a private donation, for which we are very grateful. Because the courts open in April or May, depending on the weather, and they were done previously with a private donation, and we did receive a private donation this past spring, it didn't line up with the annual budgeting process for the town, including the Department of Public Works. And there may be room in the Department of Public Works budget, but there may not be when it comes time to expend the funds to open the clay tennis courts. And so this appropriation from free cash will help ensure that the money is there to condition the courts, make sure they are ready for play in the spring, And for the fiscal year 2015 budget that we'll be developing over the next few months, we'll make sure that these costs are recurring and built into the budget because we know how important the courts are to the community. But because of budget timelines and the court year and the budget year aren't synced up, and that's what this is really for. So, I think this article will help keep the courts open.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Further discussion on the motion under Article 9? Yes, sir.
James Russell, 108 Bel Air Drive, Long Meadow, Chairman of the Park and Recreation Commission. I respect the Finance Committee's thoughts. However, I have to disagree with them. The reason being, these clay courts are a landmark in the town of Long Meadow. Many a person that has talked to me has told me when they have driven down Laurel Street, the first thing they see is the clay courts. Tennis has become a big sport. Those courts have been busy from the day they were opened up until the time that the nets came down. And there was even some requesting, could we go further into the season? You have a diehard clay court tennis player that love those courts, and those courts are beautiful. I would hate to see where a couple who are tennis players donated a substantial sum of money 2 years ago, and to see that go down the tube. I would urge each and every one of you to please consider that and vote in favor of this amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Further discussion on the motion under Article 9? Dr. Metz?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. While I recognize the importance of special places for people who have special interests, the town has all sorts of special interests that need attention to. And this kind of special allocation of funds becomes overwhelming after a while. Is there any move at all or thought to making courts such as this and other parts of the town at least have some kind of support from the people who use it? Because that will help spread the resources for other interests in town.
Mr. Crane, please.
By support, you mean like Friends of the Clay Tennis Courts or something like that? Or user fees? That is something that user fees and different ways to offset costs to services that the town provides that don't always benefit the greatest number. We're always looking at things like that. I don't know if that's been proposed in the past to the courts. If we were going to, charge user fees for the courts, we'd then have to pay somebody to be out there all day checking to make sure the people playing on the courts had paid their fees. Like I said, the cost of the courts has been offset by a private donation. We hope if people feel strongly about them that they will continue to donate to the courts. Certainly, it's up to the funds that are required for town to do the courts. It doesn't have to be greater than that. So I guess to answer your question, I don't know if that would work in this case because of the oversight factor, but we certainly would be open to good suggestions on that.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Further discussion on the motion under Article 9? Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 9 as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 10, Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $35,000 or a greater or lesser sum for the purpose of retaining a consultant to study the organizational structure, management, operations, and resources of the Department of Public Works or take any other action relative thereto.
Do I hear a second? Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 10, Mr. Foster.
Yes, sir. As the town prepares to move forward with the replacement of the current DPW facility, the organizational structure, management, operations, and resources of the department should be analyzed. The primary goal is to assess if the current level and divisions of resources actively reflect the needs of the town both today and in the future. No such analysis has been performed since the DPW was reconfigured during the charter change.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 10. Mr. Steiger.
Ned Steiger, Finance Committee Chair. The Finance Committee voted in favor of this particular article.
Thank you, Mr. Steiger. Further discussion on the motion under Article 10. Mr. Crane.
I do have a slide. Yes, me again. As noted in the description, some of the duties, or I should say the areas of responsibility for the Department of Public Works were greatly expanded when the charter was changed, without really, I don't think, any kind of organizational analysis of how do the pieces all fit together, where do we get efficiencies, and things were just kind of, put together without the additional thought. Again, this is before my time, but there are, I mentioned it, I'm going to drop to the bottom here. There are two factors that have kind of inspired this process. One is, courtesy of Mr. Foster, we did learn of a study that had been done in a town in the eastern part of the state, Andover, which is somewhat similar to Long Meadow, and I had spoken to the town manager there, and they had great results from doing a top-to-bottom organizational analysis. The other part is the town of Long Meadow recently applied for and was accepted into a statistics-driven, data-driven performance measurement program run by UMass Boston. And those combination of things really made it seem like the right time to do this organizational analysis. So, as I say, the goals of the analysis are really to help measure our efficiency levels, measure our resource levels, compare that to both national best practices and regional best practices. And in terms of a deliverable, it'll be a detailed, well-organized narrative describing the study's scope, methodology, findings, options, and recommendations. Time-based recommendations and implementation plan. It's short-term, long-term, mid-term. Statistical and staffing comparisons for other similar types and size communities in Massachusetts and New England. Benchmarks and/or performance measures related to the primary services of each department. And example position descriptions and/or scope of duties or services where applicable, and then any necessary supporting data. Director of Public Works, Mike Rabel, is a great partner on this. The department is supportive of this effort. I think it's a very good department, but I think we can strive for continual improvement and try and find ways to serve the town both better and more efficiently. Thank you.
Mr. Foster.
Yes, I'd like to offer one correction to what I read. It is not a plus or minus motion. It's the exact sum of, if I can get the right one here, $35,000.
So just to be clear now, the motion is, reads, without that, the words or a greater or lesser sum. It's $35,000. Okay. Further discussion on the motion under Article 10. Yes, ma'am.
Cynthia Summer, 57
Yep.
Farmington Avenue. I recall before the town charter reorganized the DPW, there were public works type functions being done by staff in the Park and Rec department and also in the school department, and I didn't know if the charter actually changed that so that DPW is now doing those functions, and if not, if there are still employees in Park and Rec and schools doing public works type work, are they going to be included in the scope of this study? Is it comprehensive to include all such type employees or not?
Mr. Crane.
Yes, in fact, that is, as you say, there were various functions, public works type functions being done maintenance functions performed by the Parks and Rec Department, building maintenance functions that were school department functions. The charter change took all of those and consolidated them into the Department of Public Works. Like I said, without just, piled it in, and they've done a great job, continuing to do the work of the town, but I do think it's time for an analysis of how do the pieces fit together and are they fit together the right way. So to answer your question, all those types of functions are now in the Department of Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Further discussion on the motion, Mr. Randall.
Bruce Randall, 107 Colton Place. Mr. Moderator, I'm noticing that in the discussion following the article, it's replacement of the current DPW facility, and I have a few questions clarifying that, one of which is, will there be in this study an examination of another location for it? And also, many of us are aware of the environmental protection complications relevant to its location now. And I'm wondering if those will be taken up or if this is an initial one to, well, I guess I'm doing a delineation between this and a future one that's going to be more directed on the replacement. If you could clarify that, thanks.
A good question, and
Mr.
there is
Crane,
sorry.
please. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator. There is a delineation between the two. The Select Board has identified the replacement of the Public Works facility as one of its priorities, and it's been reported on the newspaper, and if you've seen it yourself, it is in extremely bad condition, and really not suitable to meet the current needs and long-term needs of this community and fulfill the expectation the community has for its services. So replacement is a high priority. If you're going to design a building around a department, you should make sure that you have that department structured in the right way so you get the most efficient design. And so the capital project, the facilities project, really lines up with a modern department. And so this sort of is a precursor step to that study. So the issue of siting and environmental considerations are not a part of this issue. But thank you for calling that out.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 10. Mr. Santinello, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I voted against placing this article on the warrant. I think the study is premature. I think that in the time the town manager's been here, we haven't had one recommendation about how to increase efficiency in that department. There's been no topical overview from our staff or from our town manager to come back to the Select Board. This article, we had a study done for our fleet. We did a fleet assessment a few years ago. That fleet assessment came back, and the results said, here's the number of trucks you should have, number of vehicles, the weight, the size, and so forth. And we didn't adhere to that in some of the purchases that we made. And to me, this is going to be another waste of money that goes into a study because we're going to tell them more or less what to come back with. We don't need to necessarily, we need to do the study, but I think we can do some of this internally with the staff that we have, and we haven't gotten that back. There's been no input yet into what this RFP would look like for this study. We haven't talked about whether or not we want to outsource some of the jobs, whether it's going to be grounds maintenance, mowing of fields. We haven't talked about any of that, outsourcing snow plowing or anything like that. So this study is not going to come back and say those are the types of things that you should do. It's just going to say here's your department, here's the size of your town, and here's what you need. And we haven't talked about those extra things that I think we need to discuss at the board level before this takes place. So I'm not going to vote for it tonight. You vote the way you want to vote on it, but I'm telling you the reasons why. I think it's premature, and we just had a study done a few years ago on our fleets that I don't think is being adhered to.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 10, Ms. Angelides.
Thank you. I supported this article. I think it is very important that we approach the review of the DPW at this time. It's been many years since we consolidated the departments. There's a huge challenge coming up to our DPW. We have the new high school on board. I think this is a perfect time, and now that we have the new town manager, to assess and review this department as well as the study And I strongly support the town manager in the part that we should do this before we even consider where we're going to move or how we're going to reconstruct the DPW. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 10. Seeing none, we'll move directly to a vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? I would say the nays have it. Majority negative vote. Moving along to consideration then of the motion under article. Is there a request for a count? All right, all right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a hand count. Would our counters please take their positions? And we're going to take a vote. Raise your yellow cards and keep them raised until you're counted by the counter in your section. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Do you understand? Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards and keep them raised until you've been counted. Ms. Roberts?
21.
21. Mr. Shuttleworth?
21.
21. Ms. Hopfy?
29.
29. Mr. Hallahan?
29.
29. Mr. Godfrey?
14.
14. Mr. Randall?
33.
33. All those opposed to the motion as read, would you raise your yellow cards and keep them raised until you're counted? Okay. Ms. Roberts?
23.
23. Ms. Hopfy?
20.
20. Mr. Shuttleworth?
34.
34. Mr. Hallahan?
19.
19. Mr. Godfrey?
26.
26. Mr. Randall?
57. 57.
57. By a vote of 147 in favor, 179 opposed, the motion fails. Further, moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 11, Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the Treasury the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of installing pedestrian crossing signals at the intersection of Long Meadow Street and Converse Street.
We'll hear a second. Motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Mr. Foster.
Current traffic signalization at the intersection of Long Meadow Street and Converse Street does not allow for the safest pedestrian crossing. The article will allow for signalization improvements to safer pedestrian traffic at this intersection.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Mr. Steiger.
Ned Steiger, Finance Committee Chair. The Finance Committee voted in favor of this article.
Thank you, Mr. Steiger. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Ruth Griffiths, 40 Englewood Road, also right at that same intersection. I wanted to speak in strong support of this article. The current light does not have an actual cross box with a walk sign. It's very deceptive. It appears that there is a crosswalk. There's a sign that says push button for green, but nothing happens and there's not actually a button to press. There was recently a boy who was struck on his bike, a 12-year-old boy, crossing that intersection. The lights are not actually synced, so if you're going onto 91, your light will turn red, and as he's looking at the lights, everything looks to be red. But if you're coming off of 91 heading south, you have a green light for a little bit longer. This provides for a ridiculously dangerous intersection. It appears that there would be safe crossing for a pedestrian, but there is not at this time, and we think that it's very important that that is remedied. So I'm asking everyone to support that.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Mr. Crane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have a graphic up here of the I wish I had a pointer. Thank you. This is my pointer. That's the intersection in question right there. The traffic signal equipment on Long Meadow Street is fairly old. The controllers are very old. But we did meet with our on-call traffic signal contractor, and they have looked at it, and we feel like we can add the buttons and functioning crosswalk signals to the existing controllers. There's conduit under the intersection that we would need to possibly snake wires through, so there's some level of complexity to the project, but based on our review of the situation in the field, we feel like it's achievable. One of the things we're looking at right now is realigning the crosswalk, which going north and south along Meadow Street, if you can see where that semi is, that's where the crosswalk is now, to make sure we enhance pedestrian safety and guide people down to using the crosswalk signals. We may add sidewalk, pointing them in the direction of the crosswalk there on Converse Street going north and south to be closer. So that is something that we're also contemplating. We appreciate the residents of the neighborhood coming forward and highlighting this. It was an unfortunate incident. Thank goodness no one was seriously hurt. And we hope that this short-term fix can improve safety for both vehicles and pedestrians in that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Snellum, 63 Porter Lake Drive. You might have just answered it. I was trying to see the graphic, which doesn't make a lot of sense from where I am. The crosswalk on Converse, which technically, legally, you're supposed to stop if somebody is trying to cross there, is a fairly dangerous place to cross when you're making a turn on a green arrow. Will this be addressed by these issues?
Mr. Crane?
It'll be improved if we move the crosswalk closer to the intersection. It's the tough part of that, quite honestly, is the existing sidewalk runs at the back of the tree belt, which is very generous in that portion of Long Meadow Street. And so now you will have it, and if people are riding north and south, and some people are just going to go straight across where the existing crosswalk is. Hopefully children coming from school and other people who are more aware of the pedestrian environment will go closer to the intersection, use the signals, but some people are going to do that. So you are going to create kind of a double crossing point, and you could take out, start way back and, realign the crosswalk so it goes towards the intersection much further back, but people are going to take the shortest line, the shortest distance between two places. But if people are conscientious and use the signals and go to the intersection, it should improve.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11.
Hi, Pauline Craven, 220 Long Meadow Street. I also just want to speak in favor of this article. And this is, been an issue for me living right on Long Meadow Street by that intersection. I see this, this dangerous intersection every day. And for me, it's been a matter of time that someone is dangerously, hurt here. And this has happened with a boy. And when you have a young boy that's hit in a car that strikes a young boy and no one is at fault, something needs to be done. So, and I also just want to remind people that although there's several intersections in our town that are dangerous, this is a very busy trucking route. So, and I think that just poses a huge problem because even, as Ruth indicated, that southbound traffic has the green light, you can't see them because most of the times there's an 18-wheeler taking that left onto Converse. So I just want people to be, to think about that intersection in particular and how dangerous it is because it is a very busy truck route. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Craven. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11.
I'm Stephen Kennedy, and I live at 11 Western Drive. Western Drive is the first street that you come into when you leave 91. All the traffic that ends up at the Converse intersection ends up, first of all, through the Western Drive intersection. We have the exact same light or traffic pedestrian crossing situation as does Converse. I'm surprised if we have, and I wasn't aware of this, someone who's employed by the town to examine these crossing signals. I've lived in town since 1996. The signal has never worked one single day. And for pedestrians wanting to cross from Western to Forest Glen, one has a minimum of 11 seconds. Most of the time it's an 11-second time allowed to about 20 seconds. Bearing in mind the traffic that comes up the hill off 91 has a tendency, the last couple of cars that see that light turn red, they ignore it. Now it makes it all that much more difficult for pedestrians to cross. I'm in favor of this for Converse. I'm asking you tonight to have the expert, whoever this person is, to look at the next street north for having that also at some point in time repaired.
Thank you. Mr. Crane, please.
I just want to clarify that the signal, it's a contractor that does the signal work. Our town engineer analyzes the intersections, but in terms of making repairs, it's not someone on staff, it's a contractor.
Then the town engineer will hopefully analyze this.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 11.
Good evening. My name is Steve Walbridge. I'm at 14 Glenwood Circle. This is my daughter, Amy Beth. She lives at 70 White Oaks Drive.
Yes.
Amy comes to visit me and crosses numerous intersections, most of which do not have functioning crosswalks. Just as in 4, 5, 6 years ago when I voted for the high school, even though my kids were already out of the high school, I did it because it was the right thing to do for the community. I've done a study on every one of the crosswalks in town. There's copies of it on the corner there. And as Pauline Craven pointed out, this is a major trucking route coming from Springfield, going to the industrial park in East Long Meadow. The other two lights that the trucks go through at Laurel and Converse and Dickinson both have fully functional crosswalks at them. Right. Even though my daughter would benefit by other traffic lights being serviced first, I recognize the fact, just as I did in voting for the high school, that the right thing to do is fix this crosswalk first. It's the most important crosswalk that does not have a fully functional crosswalk at it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Mr. Foster, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The one question I'd like to leave everybody with, there's no doubt about it, these repairs need to be made to this intersection. But I think, and the gentleman alluded to it, he briefly touched on it, the larger question is, why did it take this long? Where is our systematic preventative type program that checks these, that records the discrepancies and puts it in the budget in appropriate format? It's wonderful that it's finally on the warrant, but why did it take this amount of years to be put on the warrant? We get Chapter 90 dollars every year. What decisions are we making where that money is going? That's one question I'd just like to leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Barbara Passo, and I've not moved yet from 119 Field Road.
Thank you.
I don't know what you're planning on doing at that intersection, but I would certainly like to put in a vote that there is no green light when people cross going either east or west or north or south, so that people will be able to cross, so that traffic comes to a complete stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Randall, further discussion on the motion under Article 11.
Bruce Randall, 107 Colton Place. Thank you, Town Manager Mr. Crane, for presenting the depiction as well, representing the article. And I'm curious, $25,000 doesn't sound like enough to do what I think of as an appropriate addressing it concerning safety, because what I think is needed, thanks for standing up, because I'm hoping you'll point out what I'm thinking is needed is that you make a sidewalk that continues along that distance between the very wide tree belt, and it continues up to the intersection on both sides of Converse, on the north and south sides. And if there's also made curb cuts and the whole process that's legal for that, which also I think would then go across Converse, although it turns into another street, I forgot the name. Is that Briarcliff? I'm not, anyway. And I'm wondering if, where will pedestrians be able to push the buttons? I think there's actually 6 locations that they should do that. And the sidewalk should be added in to do it right. And my concern is that we will do it halfway and not want to do any more, but realize, well, that didn't fully address the safety issues. Does that make sense for a question? Mr. Crane?
Yes.
Mr. Crane, please.
Yes. And this is to some extent a temporary fix. All of the intersections have had analysis performed on them to make the issues right. In term, I think I led by saying the traffic signal equipment is very old, and even the configuration of some of the intersections really isn't suitable for the volume of traffic and the turning movements that those intersections experience. Those fixes to do it below ground up are substantially more expensive, and I know Mr. Foster's comment is well placed, and it's a never-ending battle for funding priorities and capital priorities, and these are it's extremely expensive hundreds of thousands of dollars per intersection to really modernize the equipment and revitalize the intersections the way they really truly need to be done. And so, to some extent, we want to make improvements to pedestrian safety that are achievable in the short term, but this is not by any means a fix of the intersection. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it sounds like a concern of not making perfect the enemy of good. Yeah, hundreds of thousands to do it really right, but that not only the timing, but yeah, I get that. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Further discussion on the motion under Article 11. Yes, Ms. Passo.
Is there does the state reimburse for doing it correctly?
Mr. Crane, please.
Yes, they do in 2017. And I'm not being. There's sorry, pardon the wonkish moment, but there's a regional transportation plan called the Transportation Improvement Plan, or the TIP. And the TIP is managed by the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and it has major projects all throughout the Pioneer Valley region that ultimately get funded by the state. There's a long list and a long line. I'll give you an example. Next spring, a project called the Cooley Brook Culvert, which is where CVS is. There's a culvert under there that's starting to decay, and if it fell apart, it would compromise Long Meadow Street. And so the state is funding that project next spring, and it's reconstruction of the culvert and paving from Edgewood down to Warren. That is a TIP project. The right way to do the intersection is on the TIP for 2017.
Because this sounds like a Band-Aid.
If it's to improve safety, it's worth putting a Band-Aid on.
Yes,
But that's the push-pull of these issues, because sometimes you don't want to spend good money after bad, but sometimes you get opinions from contractors that do this work that say, oh, it can't be done, and then you bring in a different contractor and they say, oh, yeah, you can do it. And to some extent, that's an issue at play here, too, as well. We have a new signal consultant who took a different approach.
Could this be the forum to correct it correctly?
The article tonight?
Mm-hmm.
No, the project, the TIP project, the 2017 project is 1.1 million.
No. Could we expend the funds tonight to correct the problem correctly at Converse and Long Meadow Street?
I don't believe without an article you can.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want to point out two more things.
Yep.
The cost of doing this correctly, think of what the cost is going to be if someone like she gets hit crossing the street. And secondly, think about how much you're going to want that crosswalk if you end up with a casino in Springfield.
Okay, further discussion on the motion under Article 11. We ready to vote? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 11, would you please raise your cards, yellow cards? All those opposed? Motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Moving along to consideration of the motion under Article 12. Mr. Pelcher.
Hi, my name is Rick Pelcher, 139 Edgewood Avenue. I proposed Article 12, and it reads, to see if the town will vote to repeal bylaw Chapter 200, Section 4-216, which deals with overnight parking.
Mr. Pelcher.
Yes.
If you could just put, not to see, but move that the town, not to see.
Okay,
I know.
Okay, to move if the town will vote
Right.
to repeal bylaw 200, Section 4-216, overnight parking. Propose a severe weather parking ban for parking on odd years to park on the odd side of the street, and for even years to park on the even side of the street. Police will be the enforcing body.
Okay. The motion is moved. Do I hear a second? The motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion. Mr. Pelcher.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name's Rick Pelcher. My wife Maria and I have been residents in the town for over 20 years, and we have 3 children, Ricky 18, Tommy and Alexandra are 16 and a half, and are in the process currently of trying to get their driver's license. Soon we will have 5 cars in our household with the ability to only park 3 in the driveway. This bylaw is decades old and was conceived in a time where families had maybe 1 or 2 cars at most. We live in the 21st century where a typical Long Meadow family has 4 or 5 or more cars. Yeah, believe it or not, you drive around, you see 4 cars in a driveway all over the place in this town. As my wife and I were collecting signatures, we had to collect 100. We got, I believe, well over 200. The overwhelming consensus was, from the people we petitioned, it's about time someone brought this forward. People were literally grabbing the pen out of our hands to sign the petition. Some of their expressed frustrations were, even though they may have had a driveway which could accommodate 4 cars in a single line, picture yourself as that first car in that line, having to get out on a cold, winter morning. You have to move 3 cars out to get your car out of the driveway to go to work or whatever you have to go. Or, for example, it's 11:30 at night and you inadvertently left the car on the street and you're in fear of getting a ticket. You have to run out in the dark, in your pajamas, whatever, and pull that car off the street so you don't get a ticket in the morning. And, if you drive around town, you see people parking on their lawns, doing whatever they have to abide by this bylaw. We ourselves, my wife and I, and my kids, and their overnight guests have been ticketed numerous times just for the fact of parking in front of your house. I implore everyone here, the time has come to remove this outdated bylaw. Please vote yes to alleviate the growing families of Longmeadow of this burden, this outdated bylaw burden, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pelcher. Further discussion on the motion under Article 12? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Frank Lighthammer.
I'm sorry, what's your name, please?
My name is Frank Lighthammer.
Thank you.
I've been privileged to live in this area for 30 years, currently residing at 577 Longmeadow Street at the corner of Greenacre Avenue and Longmeadow Street, which is directly across the street from Bay Path College. I can understand why the gentleman feels that it's an inconvenience for him to have to move his car. In the same respect, I think just an up or down vote on this is very neglectful. Being at the location where we're at, we're on a corner location, and there are people that park right up against the crosswalk that goes across Greenacre. I've had neighbors tell me, and neighbors have complained to Bay Path College, they shouldn't be allowed to park there because you have all the safety of the children when they're going to and from school, that when a car is parked close to the crosswalk, they are obstructed from seeing any children coming across. This becomes a safety issue by allowing, just blanketing, anybody can park anywhere they want on the streets of Longmeadow. It's a safety issue also, in addition to the fact that the police will have no way to determine who is legitimately going to be in the town and who is legitimately not supposed to be into the town. Right now, we have a great neighborhood watch where if anybody sees a suspicious car or suspicious person, I think it takes maybe 2.5 seconds for the police to get there. We see this all the time. We have a great police department, and I think this is going to obstruct their ability to keep us, our children, and our homes safe. So many of the people are privileged in this town that they can afford to have lawn services. You've all gone through the situation where lawn service trucks have been out there in front of the house, and if you have somebody parked on the other side, you're going to create traffic congestion and probably safety problems there also. The parking of the streets during the winter storms. Basically what this is going to do is have people parking on one side of the street. It is going to allow them to just plow one side of the street. It is then going to cost the town more money in public works to go back and clean up areas where there were cars parked. If this is being proposed to facilitate residents of the town because they have too many cars and not enough driveway space, or because they are leasing rooms out, like on Greenacre Avenue, One resident leases 3 rooms out to college people, so they park out on the street. Or there are too many vehicles for the driveway. I can understand the reason for this partition. I'm not pro or I'm not con against it, because in a few months we're going to be leaving the state, so it's not going to affect us. But to resolve the issue, I would suggest, if it's going to go on an up and down vote, if it goes up, I would recommend that for that privilege, that the town, for safety reasons, so the police can identify who and what should be in town, that they be issued a sticker, possibly at the cost of $400 per year. That $400 per year could then be used for signage, for example, at Greenacre, which the town would put up, which would say no parking from here to corner, which would create safety for the children. I guess that's enough food for thought.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Moran?
Jim Moran, 48 Avondale Road. I'm a little confused about the process we're doing on this particular warrant article, because I did a little looking in Mass General Law, and Mass General Law says that it needs to start with the Select Board. It requires a petition of 10 people to the Select Board to bring a change in zoning or bylaws. And this town meeting cannot repeal a bylaw without going through proper process, which includes review by the planning board, a public hearing, and then again back to the town meeting. So I would like to see this ruled as out of order and have the actual warrant article dropped.
Well, that won't happen. This is a valid motion, article that's come before this town meeting. I couldn't make a legal ruling on it anyway.
I would like to ask Attorney Martell to...
Yeah, the process that you outlined for the public hearing and all of that, that's for a zoning bylaw amendment. This is a change to the general bylaws.
So it's only in zoning bylaws that
has the hearing process and the
procedure. So a simple up and down vote at this meeting can actually overturn that bylaw?
Can overturn...
Without a public hearing or without review by the planning?
Now, the Attorney General, well, no, the Attorney General reviews new bylaws, but an up or down vote can be taken at the town meeting without the hearing, which would be necessary for a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Further discussion on the motion? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Jones. I live at 184 Greenacre Avenue. I strongly oppose repealing of this bylaw. The reasons for my opposition are many and varied. They range from concerns about safety to the belief that having cars parked on the streets at all times decreases the aesthetic and thus overall value of the properties in our town. One of the problems with repealing this bylaw is that anyone can park on any street in town for as long as they want. As a homeowner and taxpayer, you will have absolutely no control or recourse if one of your neighbors decides to park on the street in front of your home and leave the car there indefinitely. As requested in the petition, the only time that someone would be required to move their car is in the event of a snow emergency. In a neighborhood such as ours, I believe that this will result in safety issues. People frequently use Greenacre Avenue, Hopkins Place, and Westmoreland Avenue as cut-through streets between Laurel and Long Meadow Streets. Having cars parked even on one side of the street will decrease the ability of a driver to see a pedestrian, especially a child, that might wander into the street. This is already a concern in our neighborhood, as Mr. Lighthammer has already previously said, as students and faculty of Bay Path College use our street as overflow parking for the campus. On any given day, there can be as many as 20 cars parked along our street that belong to these people. In fact, we often see groups of 4 or 5 cars parking and all of the students getting into another car and driving away, leaving 4 or 5 cars parked in front of my home throughout the day with no apparent owner. Another example of how this would potentially have negative impact on the lives of the people on our street, I will tell you of one of our neighbors. This neighbor rents out 3 bedrooms in their home. This results in 5 or more cars being parked on their property at any given time. If we repeal this bylaw, it is my strong belief that this will result in 3 or more cars of these cars being parked on the street for an indeterminate amount of time. I grew up in one of these older homes with a 1-car garage and a narrow driveway. We had 4 cars. And I know all about the jockeying that is involved, requiring everyone to get in and out for work or school on time. However, I strongly believe that repealing this bylaw will have a negative impact on the safety, aesthetic, and the property values in our town. In closing, I would like to say that I believe something as important as repealing a bylaw should not be voted by a small majority of people in town who have the luxury of being able to attend the special town meeting. I'm aware of several people in town tonight, including my spouse, who is at home taking care of our 1-year-old son, who feels strongly about this issue, and for that reason, or many other reasons, cannot be here tonight. If we are going to vote on an issue, it belongs on a paper ballot to be voted on during a regularly scheduled general election. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Levin Epstein?
Sheila Mulholland, 56 Roseland
Thank you.
Terrace. I am in support of this change of bylaw. What we're talking about, as I understand it, is overnight parking. As it currently stands, people can park on the streets during the daytime. What this affects is the homeowner who's looking to park on the street where they have to jockey cars. We've all had teenagers, we've all had overnight guests, and it's a question, it's aesthetics if nothing more. Safety is not an issue. The police still can patrol the streets. Other towns around us have overnight parking quite effectively. I don't see it presenting a problem here for our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 12, Mr. Wojcik.
Roger Wojcik, 57 Parkside Street. There are a number of one-way streets in town. Parkside is one of them. Parkside's a lane and a half wide. If anybody parks on Parkside in the evening or overnight hours in a public safety vehicle, ambulance, fire truck, police car, wants to get by, good luck to them. That's all I can say. So I recommend that we make no change in the overnight parking ban by reason of the one-way streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. Further discussion on the motion under Article 12.
Tom Snellum, 63 Porter Lake Drive. Can I ask what the current law is? I don't know what we're changing, I guess is my question.
The current law, as in our bylaw, it is 4-216, overnight parking. A person shall not leave a vehicle unattended on a public way for more than 1 hour at any time between the hour of 1 a.m. and 6 o'clock a.m. local time, regardless of whether local time is standard time or daylight savings time when the offense occurs. That's the current law. Mr. Pelcher.
I hear a lot of people talking about safety and crosswalks and all sorts of other issues. We're talking about, just like the moderator stated, hours of 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. I'm not so sure we're having crosswalk issues and people parking and can't see around crosswalks at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. This is an outdated bylaw, and it needs to go, and I implore you once again to vote this bylaw out. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion.
Yes, my name is Katie Wortman. I live at 50 Greenacre Ave. I am speaking in support of my neighbors who also mentioned some of the impact that we have from Bay Path College, and I just want to give a specific example that will be an issue if this is voted for. So currently we have an issue with a lot of the commuter students and faculty at Bay Path parking on our street and going to class. We would also have a problem with residential students if there were no more parking ban for overnight parking. My husband and I currently employ a residential student from Bay Path in our home to watch our young children. As an example, she lives on campus, she's from Connecticut, she has a car on campus, she pays Bay Path to park there. If you could park on our street overnight, any residential student at Bay Path could park on our street as long as they wanted to, moving their car as infrequently as to go home for school vacations and to go with our friends to the movies. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
James Russell, 74 Herbert Street. I'd like to speak in favor of repealing the parking ban because the parking ban has a disproportionately negative effect on young adults. I would say that the students of Bay Path College are an asset and a blessing to our community, not an inconvenience. I think we should consider them to be welcoming in our town, and this parking ban creates greater inconveniences for these students. Also, in these challenging economic times, there are an increasing number of working young adults who are compelled by economic circumstances to live with their parents. In these cases, having 4 cars in the home may be the result of economic necessity, and the jockeying can, in fact, impede people on their way to work. To make our town a more welcoming community to young people, I urge you to repeal the parking ban.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gold?
I just want to, I'm speaking against the Warren article. I believe that we should retain the parking ban the way it is. I say that because I think our bylaws are not just for today, they're not for the problems we had, but they're for the problems that we may or may not foresee in the future. There's been a buzz up at the front. I think everybody's already heard this, that Palmer turned down the casino and so tonight, and so that when we look forward to what may be coming down, a couple of miles from our borders, I would say that we don't want to have changes that we may regret later.
I need one more in favor. Yes, sir.
Fred Rosenberg, 40 Grassy Gutter Road. I used to live in one of those other towns where they allowed overnight parking, and that meant that my neighbors put their cars in front of my house and left them there forever. I had no recourse. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Tim McKenna, 197 Farmington Road. I just wanted to echo the sentiment and the concern that without an overnight parking ban, that cars could be left on a street for an indefinite period of time. And I urge people to consider the effect that this would have on the character of the town, and strongly recommend not accepting this.
Thank you, sir. 2 more speakers. Mr. Randall, please.
107 Colton Place. It's a street, not your private parking lot.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure I can follow that. Victoria Metz, 29 Revere Road. I've lived in town for 20 years. I've been coming to town meeting all that time. I have never spoken before. That's how strongly I feel that we should not change our existing law. I would like to point out that although we're talking about between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m., the cars don't go out to the street at 1 a.m. The cars will be there from the time classes end at the school in the afternoon, or when the person who owns that car gets home in the evening. That means that this beautiful town that I've lived in and enjoyed walking in the evenings after work with my husband every day is going to be covered with automobiles. I live in Longmeadow because it's a beautiful town, and automobiles are really useful things, but they're ugly. I don't want to walk past them, and please don't change our town. Vote no.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Carolyn Sluice, 103 Warren Terrace. It was always a problem in West Hartford. They had an overnight ban, and it was because it allowed the police to be more effective in patrolling the streets. We're not talking about people with 4 cars and teenagers and the difficulty of moving them around. I could suggest new pajamas maybe if you're going out to move your car at 1 in the morning. But the problem is you won't know who's parked in front of your house, who's casing the neighborhood to make sure they can come and rob your house anytime they like. We're talking about people who don't live in town, and there's a real danger, and it's not helpful to the police. We have overnight parking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we ready to vote? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to a vote on Article 12. Ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? The nays have it, majority negative vote. Now we move on to the final article, ladies and gentlemen, being Article 13. Ms. Steger.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Michelle Steger, and I live at 35 Warwick Street. Mr. Moderator, I move that the Longmeadow Town Meeting adopt the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Longmeadow Town Meeting urges the Massachusetts Gaming Commission not to issue a license to operate a casino in the cities of Springfield or West Springfield.
Okay, do I hear a second? The motion is moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13. Ms. Steger.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to briefly explain what led me and a host of others to unite to bring this citizen petition to the floor of the town meeting this evening. When I first heard of the possibility of a casino being located 2.2 miles from my house, I was pregnant with my now 1-year-old son and wanted to learn as much as I could about the potential impacts a casino might have on the community I love and the child I intend to raise here. One thing I learned early on in my research on casinos is that it's important to take a look at the long-term impacts a casino will have on a community, as any potential benefit a casino offers lasts for a brief period of time, while the costs of a casino to a community over time are significant and irreversible. I thought the best way to find out how the casino may affect our town, especially over the long term, would be to talk to leaders in Connecticut towns that have been living with casinos there for the last 20 years to hear what their experiences have been. My first call was to the North Stonington, Connecticut Select Board's office as they neighbor Foxwoods Casino. The first person I spoke with asked me 2 questions. Do you live within a few miles of the proposed casino site in Springfield? And could any of your roads in town be used as a cut-through to access the casino? Yes, on both counts, I replied. Without skipping a beat, she said, your town will never be the same if the casino comes to Springfield. It's been so painful for us here. My conversations with this woman and other town leaders who live in communities surrounding the casinos in Connecticut have haunted me. I won't lay out all of the details I've learned here tonight, but my husband and I have shared the information with anyone who will listen, and it can be found at nocasinospringfield.com. The Massachusetts Gaming Commission has repeatedly stated that the enthusiasm or lack of enthusiasm of the surrounding communities will be a factor they consider when deciding if or where to issue the casino license. In my research, I came across this quote from Stephen Crosby, who is the chair of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission and is one of the 5 people tasked with deciding where the potential Western Massachusetts casino license will be issued. He said that a surrounding community is defined as one that will receive, and I quote, a substantial negative impact, end quote, on the municipality. A substantial negative impact. I want to focus on that definition of what characterizes a surrounding community tonight as we discuss this article and consider the kind of community we want to have 5 years from now, 15 years from now, 25 years from now, 50 years from now. When the Massachusetts Gaming Commission issues the casino license in April, it will be a 75-year lease. This will outlive all of us. Longmeadow is the wonderful town that it is today because people throughout the centuries have been careful stewards of our town's unique character. Today, we have the responsibility to be those stewards to ensure that the character of our town is preserved for years to come. The Select Board and Town Manager have recently begun mitigation negotiations with the casino operator. But let's be clear, no amount of mitigation dollars will make the town whole if a casino comes to Springfield. Therefore, the best mitigation is working to keep a casino out of Springfield in the first place. So tonight, I urge that the town meeting act as this generation's stewards of our beloved community by voicing our strong, enthusiastic opposition to a casino in Springfield.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13.
Sarah Maggi-Moran, 113 Farmington Avenue. I, like many of you in this room, have already received news that the municipality of Palmer has voted no on the Mohegan Sun project, so that Mohegan Sun will not be going into Palmer. So I would like to talk a little bit about MGM in Springfield and whatever positive spin I can bring to it. MGM Springfield is not merely a casino project. It's a world-class urban redevelopment. Offers the opportunity to repair a city. This is unprecedented, and the city of Springfield is in dire needs. It's also going to utilize existing infrastructure, existing architecture, existing resources and institutions. Many of these institutions Longmeadow residents are unable to enjoy because of our perception of this city. And this includes Symphony Hall, fine arts museums at the Quadrangle, Mass Mutual Center, the Basketball Hall of Fame, City Stage. MGM Springfield is not going to exist as a fortress on an island because it's not going to be like any other casino design that you and I consider when we think about a traditional casino. The retail and the restaurants and the entertainment venues are actually going to open up to the city streets, thus elevating the profile of the surrounding blocks and inviting businesses to return to neighborhoods which have suffered so greatly from urban flight. MGM is also brings quite a cachet as a brand in terms of world-class development on a global scale. Year after year, the MGM family of brands wins countless awards on excellence in hospitality, LEED certifications, awards on employing our veterans when they come home from overseas, diversity and employment. And they're talking about bringing 2,000 construction jobs and moreover 3,000 permanent jobs. That's 3,000 jobs that do not exist right now. And they're jobs across all levels of employment. They're jobs that encompass all different pay scales, skill sets, a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. I myself personally am in the hospitality industry, and I can attest to the fact that this industry offers a wide range of career opportunities for a wide range of people, from people who hold master's degrees to people who hold MOPS, and everywhere in between. Jobs encourage self-reliance. I hear a lot of my neighbors talk about self-reliance and how we want that for people in Springfield, and jobs offer a chance for self-reliance. Jobs increase property values. Jobs reduce crime. One job, we're talking about 3,000 jobs, but one job has the ability to make a positive impact on a family, on a neighborhood, on a greater economy. And Longmeadow and the residents of Longmeadow are part of that regional economy, which is why I'm asking people to support jobs so close to home. We're not residents of Springfield, but we do share borders. And a vibrant anchor city is critical to the success and overall value of a region at large. MGM Springfield is making $50 million in biddable goods available to our local businesses. These are the businesses that employ the residents of Longmeadow. Some of these businesses are owned by residents of Longmeadow. The direct and residual effects of this boon to our economy are staggering. That's why I'm standing before you today and ask you to take this into account when you vote tonight. Those are just a few of the reasons why I'm voting no on Article 13, and I am encouraging people to say yes to MGM. Thank you.
Mr. Grant, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, everything that you can hear about positive about MGM, it all depends on, do you believe their promises? Everything that they say is just that, a promise. I would be more impressed about all these benefits if they were in writing, if they were signed, if they were enforceable to the town of Longmeadow or even to the city of Springfield. The fact is, those promises are only as good as MGM is. And as of right now, the question of MGM being suitable in the eyes of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission has not been decided. What we do know is that the Mass Gaming Commission has spent $1.7 million investigating MGM. I don't have any inside information about that, but the fact is, if you're going to trust MGM, you're trusting a pig in the poke. Now, the deal that MGM has struck with the city of Springfield, it's not enforceable. All these jobs that we hear about, let's say business is bad. How do you force MGM to hire people? How do you force MGM to have the $50 million of biddable goods? It's just a question of, do you feel lucky? Do you trust the promises? And I'll tell you what, they have done nothing to suggest that we need to trust them. Now, you've heard that Mohegan Sun has been defeated at the polls at Palmer. That's not the end of this, not by a long shot. Because the fact is, if MGM is deemed not suitable, the city of Springfield is going to try to get a replacement in here. Okay? So we need to keep fighting. And the fact is, this process is not over until the Mass Gaming Commission decides in April who is going to get the license. And in fact, there's nothing in the statute that requires them to give a license in Western Massachusetts. Now, Mrs. Steger mentioned that this is an old community. Think about everything that the people in this room have done. Think about everything that the people before us have done to make this a great town. We have maintained our parks. We've maintained quiet streets and sidewalks. Those don't exist everywhere. Think about what we've done to maintain our good schools so our children can learn. Did we do all of this so that one day a Las Vegas casino company would come on and change Longmeadow negatively forever? We did not do it for that reason. Did we work this hard? Did we pay all these extra taxes over all these years? Did we build this community so that it could all be undone in the year 2014? Ladies and gentlemen, bringing a casino to Springfield would be like chopping down a majestic tree that's been living for 100 years or more, a healthy tree, a tree to be proud of. And if you chop that tree down, that tree is gone. And you may not know, maybe another tree will come in its place. Maybe nothing will come in its place. But the one thing you can be sure about is that it will never be the same. And if a casino comes to Springfield, Longmeadow will never be the same. Now, I can't tell you tonight whether our vote will have a decisive impact on the Massachusetts Gaming Commission's determination. But I can tell you that doing nothing or voting against this resolution will make it that much easier to put this casino on our doorsteps. This question is very simple. Do you want to see Longmeadow change, or do you believe the promises of MGM? If you're against this casino, vote for this resolution. Vote for the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Jessica Reyes, 42 Hazelwood Avenue. And I wholeheartedly support what Mr. Grant said, and I agree with perhaps one thing the speaker before him said. Yes, the effects on our economy will be staggering. The effects on our town will be staggering. They will be awful, and we will wish we could go back. So I want to say I'm here to speak as an economist, as a mother, and as a resident of this town. And one of the things you learn in graduate school as an economist is how to identify lies, particularly lies with numbers. This is ridiculous. There is no way this is good for Long Meadow. There is absolutely no way. These are predatory industries. They do not sell enjoyment, they sell addiction. They seek to get people to lose their money until they are out of money. They do that, one of the ways they do that is by serving free alcohol as long as they can. So this will bring for Long Meadow traffic, crime, drunk driving, and declines in property values of 10 to 20%. That is what we will get. We will not get much mitigation money, if any. This community will be changed irreversibly for the worse. This is a clear threat to this town. People move here for the schools. They move here for the community. They will not be moving here if there are drunk drivers coming down the streets, possibly barreling over our kids or whatever, okay? This is a bad thing for us. It is actually probably bad for Springfield in the long run. These are not only predatory industries, they are industries that tend to lose money and need to be bailed out by taxpayers. We should do everything we can to send a clear, strong signal that we do not want a casino next to our town. I urge you to support this resolution and to continue to support all of the efforts to prevent this from going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pacella?
Joseph Pacella, 18 Severn Street. I've grown up in this town my whole life. I've been here 41 years. I absolutely urge you to vote no against this. I have 3 children in the school systems. I'm a product of the school system. I'm not leaving. Long Meadow's not going to change in such a dramatic way. Long Meadow is Long Meadow because of the people who live here. There is a real problem that I've seen my whole life with the way we're depicted, that we have the audacity to tell 3,000 people in Springfield who need jobs, okay, the casino may or may not employ 2,900, 3,200. They're going to keep running. There are going to be a lot of jobs there. There's a lot of people who need them. I work with some of those people. There's a lot of people who need those jobs. There's a lot of other industries that will benefit. I think that it is akin to voting against the Big E. Okay, it affects our traffic, sure, but has it changed Long Meadow? Not at all. And this is another entertainment facility that'll be there. It'll be there a lot longer, obviously, but it's not going to change Long Meadow. I have full faith in our police department, that our police department is exemplary and will do everything needed to take care of any additional increase whatsoever. It's not going to change us. I think it sends the wrong message, and I truly think it's shameful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Liassi?
Diane, oh.
Richard Elias, 608 Frank Smith Road, and a member of the Finance Committee. Before anybody asks a question, the Finance Committee does not make determinations on policy. All we can do is advise on the financial matters. So that's going to end the question that might come up. I'm not here to support the casino or to say the casino should not be there. I just like to have a little bit of reality. First off, Springfield, I remember when I was small, it was a city of homes with jobs and business and everything. Then it became the city of bars. We get the drunk drivers from those bars now. It was a city where people could walk on their streets like we can here, and their children would be safe walking to the stores. That's not true anymore in Springfield. Springfield was on the way back until the tornado hit. And then it got that kick in the, well, you know where. And this seems to be the only hope for the city of Springfield. I wasn't going to say anything until I found out that Palmer decided not to have it. But remember, the people in Springfield are our neighbors. A lot of them work in Springfield and live here, and we have to consider them. I'm not asking anybody not to vote for this or to vote for it, but remember, there is crime in Springfield, and it is coming over into our town. We have problems in the schools because of drugs and stuff. Our police department takes care of this. We don't hear a lot of hoopla about it, but they take care of what has to be done, and that's why we still have a safe town. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Elias. Ms. Nadeau?
Diane Nadeau, 41 Shaker Road. I urge you to vote no on Article 13 and say yes to MGM. MGM Springfield will bring back the energy and life to Springfield that perhaps it once had. Jobs, foot traffic, tourism, and new business will all come with this project. It's a positive change. Springfield is nothing to rave about right now. MGM will attract the best entertainment, restaurants, shopping, and family attraction options. These things can spark a Springfield comeback story that we all can be proud of. MGM Springfield is not a box with gaming tables or slot machines. This cool design opens up to the city and celebrates so much more than cards and dice. Over 60% of their revenues come from the attractions other than gambling. MGM is going to breathe new life into the Mass Mutual Center, City Stage, Symphony Hall by bringing in premier entertainment acts. MGM wants to work with our region to make it more complete and not compete with what we already have. We all know a bad economy and a horrific tornado truly devastated the downtown of Springfield, and specifically the South End. Springfield needs this development for the best recovery possible, and our whole region will benefit. MGM sees the possibilities in Springfield and is designing a resort that fits the character of a great New England city. Springfield can once again be an exciting destination with a world-class resort as its anchor. I am excited about the possibilities and want to help Springfield's recovery. Vote no on Article 13 and say yes to MGM.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13?
Yes, hi there. My name is Betsy Port. I live at 212 Farmington Road, and I would like you to vote against MGM, against a casino in Springfield. Property values will go down. The first selectman of Preston, Connecticut, which borders Foxwoods, estimated that property values within 3 miles of the traveled route to the casinos, which would be equivalent to Route 5 and the side roads in our town, declined 25%. DUIs will go up and the roads will be less safe. Under state law, casinos will be allowed to serve free alcohol from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. We're not talking about Disney World, family entertainment. We're talking about children crossing the street now. The town of Ledyard, Connecticut, which hosts Foxwoods Casino, has the highest rate of OUI accidents in the state of Connecticut. Mitigation costs are huge and not enough. MGM has provided for $500,000 total for all 8 surrounding communities. The town of North Stonington, Connecticut receives $880,000 a year in mitigation, but one town selectman we spoke to says it is not nearly enough to cover the costs that they incur because of the casino. I want to personally thank Mrs. Michelle Steiger for bringing this to the town meeting. I want to thank Alex. I want to thank Paul for leading the select board. I want you to think about the future of this town and save it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Al Zippin, 221 Bel Air Drive. Born and raised in Springfield, and I've lived in Longmeadow for about almost 40 years now. And I know that I'm speaking for the minority here. I am 100% behind MGM coming here, 100%. I've been privileged to be in the various meetings with MGM from day one, from their first appearance here, their first presentation. I've attended meetings with them. I've attended meetings with officials from other towns. I've been privileged to be there. And I want to tell you, you can put all the emotion you want into it. The fact of the matter is that Springfield is the economic hub of Western Mass. And very, very many people in Longmeadow are more than willing to run their businesses in Springfield, have their jobs in Springfield, and take the money out of Springfield, and now to look down their noses at the city of Springfield. If you want facts, look at the facts. The people who talk about crime. How many of you have met with Commissioner Fitchett, who will tell you all the statistics indicate that there is not going to be an increase in crime across the nation? He has checked with other police chiefs, et cetera, et cetera. I don't see the casino as the cure-all for the long term, but I do believe that we need to support our neighbors in Springfield for a jump start to the economy. I also think that the emphasis on the word casino is really being overplayed. MGM gets 30% of its money from casinos. The other 70% comes from entertainment and other such things. How many of you really looked at the plan? How many of you have seen that the casino that will be here in Springfield will be inside a building, will not have any kind of advertising outside the building, and beyond that, they are going to create apartments, office space, etc., all part of the plan. I also want to tell you, for those who may not know, tourism is the biggest industry in Massachusetts, the single biggest industry. You want tourism, you want people to come and spend money in this area, you better provide them with a suitable place. I think that to vote no, to vote against MGM, is to send a message to Springfield that we're comfortable taking money out of the city, but when it comes to helping the city, we don't know who they are. The whole point here is employment, creation of jobs, etc. The commitment from MGM on these 2,000 jobs that they're talking about for construction is 90% hiring from this area, 10% the crew that they bring in. Similarly, when it comes to other 3,000 jobs, they subsidize education programs throughout the country. Anywhere they have a site, they encourage students to finish school, they employ those students, they subsidize further courses for their employees, etc. I also want to mention that in addition to all of this, we need to know that if Springfield does well, we all do well. I think it's very arrogant of people here to consider that Springfield doesn't deserve to rebound, doesn't deserve to take an opportunity to repair all the damage that was done, all the economic damage and physical damage that was done by all of these, the tornadoes, the storm, whatever it may be. I think it's about time that we stop looking down our noses at the city of Springfield, and that we stood up and said, we're going to support our neighbors with this opportunity to repair the city from which all of us will benefit in one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Weiss, 18 Pioneer Drive. Well, I'm a member of I've lived here in town 27 years. I'm a member of the Historical Commission and a member of the Community Preservation Commission. I want to provide the caveat, I'm not speaking on behalf of either of those entities. I'm speaking personally. I know this is an issue that people have a lot of emotional feelings about, and I respect those. And I feel deeply about the town of Longmeadow. for all the reasons I've just said. But we can't put Long Meadow in a bubble or shrink wrap it. We are also part of the greater metropolitan Springfield area. For that, it would be great if Microsoft or Google or somebody were going to be putting in a campus with 3,000 employees in Springfield. That would be great. But nobody else is offering to develop Springfield right now. So I think I would ask that we not approve this resolution. The only other thing I would add about the rumor and innuendo and about all the questions about what sort of damages would be caused in Springfield, that's what this study is for. We authorized a study tonight. That will provide information about what the costs, if any, to the town will be. So I would vote against this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13? Yes, sir.
Fred Rosenberg, 40 Grassy Gutter Road. Gambling can become an addiction. It can become a disease. We have a compulsive gambler in the family. It destroys families. It destroys everything. Luckily, his wife is a lawyer and put everything in her name, so the family was not destroyed, and he gets a weekly allowance. Most people do not have that kind of privilege when they become compulsive gamblers. I am not in favor of bringing gambling into this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13?
Carolyn Sluice, 103 Warren Terrace. I love the movies. MGM brought us the movies. MGM can help Springfield. Money that was supposed to go to Springfield ended up mysteriously in the Big Dig in Boston, was never seen again. You have somebody who's willing to invest in Springfield. Hartford is coming back. I don't know from where. I haven't seen it. I've lived in Hartford and West Hartford for years. I've worked in Hartford. I'm still waiting for it to come back. That MGM wants to even consider investing in Springfield, to bring Springfield back. I did a cemetery crawl of the old Long Meadow Cemetery this past weekend for an archaeological project. Back then, from then, there's been change. Change happens. The universe expands. We're in the 21st century. But one thing they had back then, which I hope we still have now, is good neighbors. Springfield is our neighbor. And how they do, we will do. And I don't gamble, I don't drink. But I will bet you that if MGM comes here, your property values are going to spiral. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Steiger?
Hi, Ned Steiger, 72 Twin Hills. I've been a volunteer in town for 10 years. You know, I don't think this is the venue for us to determine that our citizens should support or not support casino. I mean, I don't have any vested interest in any property, economic interest. I just don't think that this is the venue to decide whether we're for or against casinos. And you know, I think everybody's got to think about it in terms of who did you vote for the last 8 years. If you voted for Deval Patrick, he was clear, he was for casinos. So if you voted for him, you voted for casinos. He was very clear this is the direction that he wanted to go in. If you voted for your state representatives, they were very clear they were going to vote for casinos. This isn't the venue for us to make the decision. If we vote, if you affirm this citizens petition, it means nothing, right? If you want to make a difference, work on a referendum, write a letter to your state representatives. This isn't the place for it, because at the end of the day, we just voted to give our select board $100,000 to do the best job they can to negotiate a relationship with MGM. Now you vote for this, you vote for this referendum. You just created a conflicted select board, and now they got to focus on what are they going to do, where are they going to come out on the whole casino issue. They're not going to put their best foot forward and focus on all the other things they have to do during the year, as well as making sure they negotiate the best deal for the for our town. So I really think you got to second guess what the purpose is here, and if you want to vote against, if you're against casinos, write your legislator. If you're for casinos, hey, continue to vote for your legislatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steiger. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Rene Reyes. I live at 42 Hazelwood Avenue. Several of our neighbors here this evening have spoken passionately and eloquently about this issue in favor of bringing a casino to Springfield. They've spoken of the urban plight that our neighbors in Springfield have suffered from, the economic hard times, the natural disasters, calamities even, that have befallen our neighbors to the north, and have appealed to our sense of shame. How dare we stand in the way of economic progress? They have cast MGM as the white knight that will come to the rescue of this beleaguered city, and asked you to ask yourselves, how dare you, how dare we stand in the way? Ladies and gentlemen, these arguments do have emotional force, but be not deceived. It is not our civic duty to support bringing casino to Springfield. Rather, our civic duty as members of this town meeting, as property owners, homeowners, parents, members of a community here in Long Meadow, our civic duty is to focus on the facts. Put aside emotional appeals, put aside passion and prejudice, focus on the facts, the data. And the facts and the data are unambiguously clear. Negative externalities that will affect this town in the form of increased crime, increased traffic, drunk driving are real. They will be experienced by each of us, each of your neighbors, in a very real and direct way. That's our civic duty, ladies and gentlemen, to keep those facts in mind and to present a clear and consistent message. We approved the financing for this study because we want to be in a position to mitigate these adverse impacts if it comes to that. But to the extent we have an opportunity to forestall that unfortunate event from coming to pass, let's do that. Vote against bringing casino to Springfield. Vote in favor of this warrant article. That's our civic duty, and I urge all of you to embrace that duty with me tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Santinello, I will inform town meeting that we've had in excess of 5 people in favor and 5 people opposed. Mr. Santinello.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I want to correct one thing that Mr. Steiger said. You did not vote to give the select board anything. It wasn't $100,000. You voted to give the town, us, $100,000, and I'll read the words, to protect its interest. You didn't give us $100,000 to create a relationship with MGM. There's never going to be a relationship with MGM. When the casino law was enacted, there's something called that we are going through a process called mitigation. It is not a mitigation for the benefit of Long Meadow. It's a mitigation of what the negative impacts of a casino will bring to our town. As someone who grew up in Springfield, I sure hope as heck you didn't look down your noses at me. Right? There's a reason why I moved to Long Meadow. There's a reason why people don't move from Long Meadow to Springfield. It's our neighbor. I understand that. And there's more people in this room who donate to charities that operate out of Springfield for the benefit of Springfield residents. So to play the shame game that's shameful. If you're in favor of I'm not anti-casino. You want to go gamble, I want to go gamble, let's go have some fun. I'm anti-casino so close to our borders. If there was a relationship, folks, the mayor of the city of Springfield would have come to the town of Long Meadow when he negotiated it single-handedly with MGM to bring it into Springfield. There was no consideration for Long Meadow. And I'm not saying that you want to hold some spite because of that, but when we talk about operating in a bubble or operating out on our own, the reality is Springfield did what it needed to do to protect its interest. We need to do what we need to do to protect our interests. That's the bottom line. And for anybody who thinks that there will not be a negative impact, then you shouldn't have voted for the $100,000, because that is exactly what we're trying to prevent. The negative impacts, we're trying to figure out what will the cost be, not to you and me, but to the whole town, and not just in dollars. It's quality of life. And quality of life, just so you understand, is not part of the mitigation process. The negative quality of life that it will bring to this region is not part of the process. What's part of the process is how many drunk drivers, more drunk drivers we're going to arrest. What's part of the process is what's the traffic and flow going to be through the town. But when you're trying to get somewhere and you can't because of that increased traffic, or there's more crime in town, there's no dollar amount that's going to solve that problem for you. So we're in a mitigation process to protect ourselves. And the legislator recognized that. And I didn't vote for Deval Patrick, so I guess I'm okay to vote against the casino. So I'm going to correlate that. And I just, you know, the issue of supporting our neighbor, we do. And I think we're one of the most generous communities out there. So, you know, again, if you have a job that might be coming from that, then I would expect you to support it. But as a selectman for the town of Long Meadow, I don't care what happens in Springfield unless it's going to have a negative impact on us. And that's why I would urge you to vote in support of this petition article. The folks that have brought this forward have done a tremendous amount of research. And I've worked in Southern Connecticut where Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun is. It is not a glorious neighborhood down there. Those folks have to fight every day for every dollar they get from those casinos. It's not a relationship, folks. We're not building a relationship with the casino. We haven't built a relationship with the city of Springfield. And the city of Springfield didn't look and say, geez, Long Meadow, you're going to have 38% of the flow of the traffic up Route 91 from the south. That's MGM's projections. 38% of their traffic is going to come from the south. No one from the city of Springfield or MGM came to us and said, gee, how can we help you? So I would urge you to vote in favor of this petition. And what it does, folks, it's not going to stop a casino potentially from coming to Springfield, but it sends a message that we do care. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 13. Move. You can get in line, just like everybody else has. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Caroline Shapiro, 117 Eaton Street. I'm coming to you tonight as a psychologist who worked for 5 years in an addiction center, and my specialty was helping people that develop gambling problems. So, first of all, I think that voting against a casino would be protecting the most vulnerable people in Springfield. It would be taking care of them, because if a casino comes, it needs to make money. It needs to make millions of money. And who is most likely to go gamble and put that money? It's the people that live close by, people in Springfield, people in the surrounding communities. The number one factor that predisposes people to develop a gambling problem is accessibility. If it's close by, if you can drop by on your lunch break and think you'll just limit yourself to $50, but then lose control. You get paid on Thursday, and before heading home, you feel like you'll try your luck and then lose your entire paycheck. I've heard for 5 years people telling me their stories and the hardships, the divorces, the children being put in protective custody because parents would leave them at home. I've heard all the stories. I've heard people coming to me having attempted suicide. So I'm telling you tonight, please vote against the casino. We have to think of the humanity behind this. It would be devastating for Springfield and for the surrounding communities. Thank you.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm cognizant of the number of people that have spoken both for and against, and I am cognizant of the 5 people in favor and 5 people against. Some people that have stayed in line, I believe they want to be heard, and I'd ask you to keep your remarks brief. We have to conclude this debate at some point. At some point, I'm going to call for a motion to move the previous question. I'd ask you to come up to the microphone and try to keep your comments brief as you can.
Elaine Turtelot, 64 Prinwood Road. The town of Long Meadow owes it to the city of Springfield to vote against a casino. How many cities have been improved by casinos? Will a casino pay a living wage and health insurance? I have heard tonight much discussion about the intelligence, the skills, the abilities of people in Long Meadow. The community has such. We can put our heads together and work on development of far better things for the city of Springfield. We should use our talents and skills for positive things.
Thank you. Mr. Zippin.
Mr. Moderator, I will keep these comments brief. There are just a couple of things I wanted to add. Number one, I agree with Mr. Steiger that if we want to oppose or support a casino, we should do it through our legislators. Also, I want to point out that if you look at the money that is going out of this state, hundreds of millions of dollars going to Connecticut, going to casinos, whether we have a casino or not in Springfield, gamblers will continue to go. More and more, they go. And the money leaves here where we should have it. And finally, I want to tell you that for the last 2 years or more, I have been doing everything I can in support of the casinos. And I've had people say to me, well, that's awful. I have one question for the people who say that's awful, and we don't need to do that. And I've asked it repeatedly, and the minute I ask it, the discussion is over. If you don't want a casino, give me another idea to increase the economy and development in Springfield. Give me one.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Zippin, 115 Tanglewood Drive. My father-in-law, who went before me, and I are on opposite sides of the spectrum on this one, and we can still manage to have a family dinner on a rare occasion and keep politics and gambling out of it. I want to say just 2 things. First, Long Meadow has nothing to gain and everything to lose by having a casino 3 miles away. And MGM is not investing anything in Springfield. They're building a $1 billion building, and someone is going to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, I'm Ted Steger, 35 Warwick Street, the very proud husband of Michelle Steger. I just wanted to have a few quick facts out on the table here. First, the Mass Gaming Commission has asked for the input of the surrounding communities. That's why we're here tonight. This is the right forum because this is the town meeting. This is not about holding Springfield back. This will not be helpful to Springfield. And this will hurt far more people than MGM will employ. In fact, in the state of Illinois, they have a list that people can go on to ban themselves from casinos. There have been more people who have banned themselves from casinos because they're worried about their gambling problem than are employed by the 10 casinos in the state of Illinois. There's no question it's going to hurt more people than it will help. The other fact is a Harvard study was done in 2005 that showed that the unemployment rate does not change when a casino comes to town. So all the talk about jobs are gained, but jobs are lost because when some people we talked to in Connecticut said that all the restaurants within 30 miles closed. The casinos can give $5 steaks, so you're not going to go to Spoleto, you're going to the casino. The architect of the mass gaming legislation said he would not want a casino in his town. Stephen Crosby, the gaming chair, when he was asked if he would want to live near the casino, he said not too close because of the impact on property values. In fact, the National Association of Realtors did a study showing that there is a unambiguously negative impact on property values. As far as crime goes, the most substantial study done on the issue of crime in casinos, crime communities and casinos, showed an 8% increase in crime after a 5-year lag. So this is a real issue. That's all I can say. I'm very proud to be
Thank
up
you.
here, and thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Beverly Kuhn. I live at 114 Emerson Road. Just imagine 5 or 6 bullet points. Number one, MGM isn't coming or wanting to come to Springfield to help Springfield. They're coming to Springfield to make money for themselves. Has anyone thought about how to prevent traffic coming through Route 5, Long Meadow Street, as opposed to 91? There are going to be busload after busload after busload of people coming to the casino. You know, do we think that no one is going to be coming down Long Meadow Street? Supposedly, you know, jobs will be created, and supposedly they'll be hiring people from Springfield and the greater communities. If so, where are all these people going to live? They're all these new 3,000 new jobs. Some of the people will be seeking housing in Long Meadow. You know, why not? And that will bring property values down. Think about hospitals. There's going to be much more activity in the emergency rooms. Are the emergency rooms equipped for it?
Right.
Just a lot, in my opinion, many reasons to vote against a casino.
Okay. Mr. Grant, please.
Very briefly. Now, we've heard a lot about what MGM is promising, but I just want to ask you something. For anybody who's considering supporting MGM, what do you know about MGM? Who is MGM? Now, if somebody was making me promises of thousands of jobs and millions and billions of dollars, I'd want to know who's making those promises before I believed it. What you do know about MGM is that they're losing money. So anything that you're hearing from MGM, don't take it to the bank. The other point I would make is that West Springfield, they came out, they voted today, they voted against a Springfield casino. If they can do it, we can do it.
Okay. Further discussion on the motion under Article 13? Yes, sir.
Leo Vartanian, 500 Inverness Lane. How many of people have been to Atlantic City? When some of these casinos build million and billion-dollar buildings, they look great on the boardwalk, but have you walked 2 blocks away and see the rest of Atlantic City? Not a pretty sight. If you look in the paper, if you've been reading for the last 2 or 3 years, Mohegan Sun is losing money, Foxwood is losing money, their revenues are down, they've been laying off people, and in this economy, we're going to stick another casino with the same amount of people essentially coming, so 3 casinos are going to share the amount of people that are going to tune out, which means that the success of MGM depends on a limited number of people and a limited number of gamblers. I understand money going to Connecticut will be in Massachusetts, but the facts are that they are struggling, and I don't see why MGM wouldn't struggle in the same economy in Springfield.
Okay. Thank you.
Rebecca Townsend,
Yes.
160 Ely Road. I move the previous question.
Thank you. All right. There is a motion to move the previous question, ladies and gentlemen. A motion to move the previous question is undebatable. It requires a 2/3 vote. And we have to vote on the motion to move the previous question first, and depending on the outcome, we'll vote on the motion or continue if the motion is defeated. So all those in favor of the motion to move the previous question, would you please raise your cards? All those opposed? Unanimous affirmative vote. The motion to move the previous question passes by unanimous affirmative vote. We will now move directly to a vote on the main question. All those in favor of the motion as read, would you please signify so by raising your yellow cards? All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes majority affirmative vote. I'll now entertain a motion to dissolve the 2013 special town meeting. All those in favor? All those opposed? This special town meeting is dissolved.